nearly. Okay, so standing in the middle of your mat, feet hip width apart, just a little bit of wiggling on the toes, just to wake up the feet, wiggle the fingers. Gently draw the arches up underneath the feet, soften the knees, tuck the pelvis under, just engaging pelvic floor, TVA, so going up. Lift the rib cage, shoulders down and back, length at the back of the neck. Crown of the head rising towards the ceiling. And if you can, just the eyes going down to the screen, not the whole head and the whole neck. So we're getting ourselves nice and tall. Pull in pelvic floor and TVA, 100% squeeze. We're going to hold for 10 seconds. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. And be aware if you're holding your breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and a slow release. If you think you might be holding your breath, count, because when you count, you can't hold your breath. Pulling in again, big squeeze. 10, 9, 8, shoulders relaxed. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and a slow release last time. Pulling in, just releasing the muscles in the jaw, the muscles between the eyebrows as well, sometimes on the forehead. Just a release, shoulders relaxed, just focusing on the core. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow release it down to 50%, so we're not pulling so tight that we want to hold the breath. So relaxing there, we're just going to the shoulders and just do some little shoulder circles. So squeezing shoulders up to ears, circling them around and back. Notice as you squeeze your shoulders up whether you lose TVA. So keep that pulling in on the core. And now we can just let go of the feet slightly. So take a little bit of tension out of the feet, let them kind of melt or soften into the mat a little bit. So we're just relaxing slightly, but whilst we're still pulling in core, tucking under pelvis. And the next bit we can put the weights into. So it's up to you now if you want to get your weights. So picking up your weights, bending your knees when you pick your weights up. Again, same position, engage the core, but with the wrists, so palms facing each other, obviously holding the weight, so your shoulders come forwards, and then just opening with the chest, and you take your time, squeeze your shoulder blades together, take your palms out to the sides, and then letting them go forward. So it's a very simple exercise. It's basically shoulders forwards to shoulders back, but obviously adding that little bit of weight can kind of help get a little bit of strength there, just holding those shoulders back. Now notice, is particularly when you take your shoulders back, what happens with the pelvis and the core. So if you feel like the rib cage is getting a massive lift and you're hyperextending the lower back and you're losing that pelvic stability, just come back, focus on the core, the TVA and the pelvic floor, and see if you can get the release in the shoulders more so than the lift on the rib cage. Does that make sense? And you should get that nice squeeze there on the shoulder blades. Keep the length at the back of the neck, just 2 more. Last one, breathing out as you turn the wrists around. So come back to the wrist, the palms are facing towards you, then squeeze them, shoulders up to your ears, and then releasing them back down. Still just holding the weights. So it's a squeeze, and then it's like a real passive release. You don't really do much on the release. So it's a big squeeze, and then release. And again, let's go back to the rib cage. Try not to let the rib cage lift or flare on this one. So it's just shoulders. So pulling in pelvic floor, pulling in TVA, pelvis tucked under. And we're just kind of isolating shoulders for a nice little bit of a release. 2 more. Squeeze and release. Really good to help get rid of any neck pain. So release them back down, and you might want to do a little circle, roll them down and back, and then it's side bends. So we've done this on the last couple of weeks. Try and keep your hips, your pelvis still. And if you do get, like, your spine gets a little bit out, like, not out, there's a bit of a weird way of saying it, but you get a little bit of, like, a wonkiness sometimes in your spine, like I do. Just a simple exercise this with the weights can help self-adjust. So just taking it steady. Try and keep the hips, the pelvis still. But you need to engage the core. So pelvic floor in, TVA in. And you can think about letting the ear go down to the shoulder, so working to the neck as well. And it's breathing out as you lower. Breathing in to lift, reset. We'll go 3 more. So we did this one last week, and it's lifting one arm up to the side, keep the shoulders down and back, and then the opposite leg lift. So today I won't probably prep you into things, I'll probably go straight in to see how we manage going straight into some of the full versions after a couple of weeks of it. So to balance this exercise, so use the big toe, engage the pelvic floor, thinking about squeezing the glutes a little bit to hold that balance. And it's not necessarily a really high leg lift, it's just a little kind of tilt on the pendulum. Keep engaging with the core, shoulders down and back. And again, we don't often use the shoulder laterally like this, so sometimes it can be quite hard to lift a weight to the side. But you can always have a little bend, if you're struggling, a little bend in the elbow. If you struggle with your weight, if your weight's too heavy, right? Because obviously with a straight arm, longer levers. 3 more, breathing out to lift, breathing in, recenter. Then we go for our squats. So get yourselves maybe a little bit wider on the feet, hips back into space, and just bring the weights forwards to a comfortable position and then rising back up. Notice what's happening in the knees and the feet. Try not to let the arches pronate too much. But if you feel like your feet are really tense and you're really scrunching your toes, maybe just take a little bit of that tension out. So we're going back to that kind of softness a little bit into the mat. Try and think about the grounding through the pelvic floor, the glutes, so all through the core muscles. So we'll do the add-in we've been doing. So it's go down into your squat, then arms around the sides to a full body stretch, then up onto the toes for balance. Lower, coming down and around, squat, breathing in and around, up onto the toes. Heels down and squat. And rising back up. So when you're in that squat, think about the hips going back into space, shoulders over knees. And try not to hold the breath at any point with this one. Again, if you're struggling to bring the hands forwards for the front raise, when you come down into squat, you just bend the elbows a little bit. Depends how heavy you've got. If you've got a couple of tires, I wonder if that's possible. Go 3 more. Into that squat, controlling the knees. Engaging glutes to rise. Focusing pelvic floor, 2VA, last one. Come down to a resting point, shoulders relax, and it's just that easy twist. So still engage pelvic floor and TVA, but just allow your arms to relax a little bit. Going back to the feet, let them relax and melt into the mat. Not maybe to the point that the arches drop completely and knees pronate in. A little bit of softening on the knees. And if you choose, maybe looking behind, so it's a little bit more neck. We kind of come to this move as a release. And again, sometimes if you're a little bit out, sometimes you can self-adjust yourself with this one, particularly if you have any shoulder problems. Two more. So going back to when we did last week, we're going to go sideways on. We go shoulder press, so it's bending in the elbows, lift up, and you can add going up onto your toes. Then we come down, and then we go stick the hips back, and then it's that ski jumping position for the fly back. Then you bring the weights down towards your feet, and then we lift it one leg up, take it back, maybe touching the floor or just lowering the weight slightly, and then switching it over. So kind of it's a lot in there, it's a balance. So it's your shoulder press, balance with your toes, bring it all down, and then work at finding your flat back for the ski jumping fly. Then take a moment and then take single deadlift, switch it over, engage with the glutes, soften the knees. So a little bit of a bend in the knee, then back into shoulder press. And maybe you feel like you're going to get a little bit more flow, so take it at your own pace. You might not be the same pace as me. And maybe you're wobbling a bit on that single deadlift. And up, notice as you're going up on your shoulder press, you're still engaging with the core. Fly back. When you fly back as well, think about that length at the back of the neck. Pelvic floor in TVA and lifting for the shoulder press. Flat back. Length at the back of the neck. And just notice for your single deadlifts, maybe take a wide base. So don't be afraid to take like a bit of a wider base on it. Try not to balance beam it. And lower. And flat backs. All the time engaging pelvic floor TVA. I would say like 2 more. That would be a good way of going. So if you notice you always go on the same leg for the single deadlift, maybe switch that one. Try the other side first. Hips back. Hopefully by that last one then you were getting to grips with that balance. Okay, so another little balance I've got for you is it's a high knee. So I'll show you sideways on. Just going to lift one knee to a high knee. I'll show you that way as well. So there's your balance straight away. Use your big toe, squeeze your glutes. Then see if you can do a running arm action with your weights. It's actually really tricky. So a couple of them. And then you can switch that over. So it's a high knee. Take your time, use your big toe, pelvic floor in, squeeze the glutes. Then, and you don't need, if you're struggling with the balance, maybe don't take the knees so high. Then a couple of these running arms. And if you're thinking about your running arms, shoulders relaxed, right? Shoulders down away from ears. And there's running arms where you can take your elbow back into space, or like if you're doing just a bicep curl here. So think about the elbows going back in space. It's going to challenge you more on your balance. So then when you get this, you go 1, 2, 3, switch it over, 1, 2, and 3. So we're moving a little bit quicker. We have to restabilize a little bit quicker, so it's going to be harder for the core. So elbows are going back in space. So sometimes you can think if you're running for the bus and you want to run faster, you could say to yourself, drive your elbows back. Because if your elbows are driving back, it would mean that your hands are driving forwards on the next arm that goes. So it's a really kind of key way of getting faster. Elbows driving back. Switch. It's all about that re-stabilization, using that big toe, using those glutes, using that core. And hopefully now you're starting to get into that bit more of a balance as you swap. Good to find a focus point. Possibly not on me, because then if I wobble, you'll wobble. Find a place in your room. So just 2 more swaps. Think about taking the elbows back, so don't kind of lock your biceps into the sides of your body too much. So release. Okay, then just take the weight onto one foot. You can just keep the weights on you for a second. We're just going to close the eyes, count to 10. Just holding that balance. Maybe seeing what's happening with the feet and the ankles. Using the core, squeezing the glutes. I don't know how you felt. Like I felt this is easier with weights. I don't know why. And then we'll take the arms up to the side. You can bend in the elbows if the weights are too heavy, or arms straight. And it's those heel lifts. So just lifting the heel off the mat and lowering. And you can just switch the wrists over. So just a little lift and lower, like a little mini calf raise. See if you can really work on the ball of the foot, the big toe. Use the glutes, use the core. And it's about 10 of these, 8 to 10. Just those little switches in the wrist, really strengthening forearms and wrists. Really good for swimming, this one. We'll see. Forearms are quite important in the front crawl, the fly, sculling anyway, any kind of sculling. Once you've done your 8 to 10, we can think about going to the other leg. So switch sides. First of all, just finding the balance and close your eyes. So it's just a real challenge to find that internal focus without using sight. Shoulders relaxed. Pulling in pelvic floor, pulling in TVA. Once you've done your 10 seconds there, arms out to the sides. Just be aware of the shoulders down and back here. So shoulders down away from your ears. Ears will be sitting comfortably over those shoulders. And into your heel lifts with your wrist twists. That's to be good for gardening actually. Strengthening the wrists, the forearms, for the weeding. I'm working on about 10. Just notice if you're holding your breath, because balance sometimes can bring that kind of holding breath. Little lifts. Using those glutes. Just a couple more. Okay, so release from there, put the weights to the sides. Come and find your downward dog. So meet me down on the mat. I'll just adjust the camera so you can see me. So downward dog or a puppy dog, hips up towards the ceiling, and just really thinking about the length there. We've just done quite a lot on the arms, so the length kind of on the back, the top of the back, down the arms, the shoulders. So maybe bend the knees here if it helps, just to really think about setting the hips up into space and the chest towards the thighs. And then walking through your dog if it helps with the tight hamstrings or tight calf muscles. Think about your knees, your feet hip width apart. Spread your fingers. Really push the backs of these fingers down into the mat. So the same thing that we've been doing after a couple of weeks is bring the right knee towards the nose and then lift, opening in the hips. So take that foot around to the other side and then bring it over to the right elbow, extend, open, and then over to the left. If it all feels a little bit too much, just work with your walking through the dog. Then stepping that right foot forwards. So it's that high lunge position. Come up to a bit of a balance on your high lunge. And you can really push back through that left leg here, pushing down that kind of left heel. Feel the hip flexors stretch. So from there we've been working with a bit of a twist. So left hand coming down just off the mat. Take yourself into a really big twist, right hand up to the ceiling. Thinking about opening through the chest. And from here, just draw a massive giant clock with the right arm. So just working with that right shoulder, just a nice slow stretch, a big circle, reaching up towards the ceiling, drawing around a big clock, and then the other way around. If you can, eye gaze up to the ceiling, kind of working with the neck. And maybe you're feeling like the stretch here now in your right hip. One more big circle. Then placing the hands down, step back into your downward dog. Spread the fingers. If you want, walk through your dog, hips up to the ceiling, or we'll go with the left leg. So knee to nose, and then extend, opening in that hip, and then come back over to the left elbow and then extend. Try not to hold the breath. Over to the right, just preparing to step through into our high lunge. So step that left foot forward. Check that you're not on a balance beam, it's more of a railway track. Pushing back through that right heel, feel that hip flexor stretch. Take a moment just to find the balance, find the breath. Then bringing that right hand down, taking it just off the mat. Into that really big super twist. Left arm up to the ceiling, and then you can bring in those big giant clock circles up and around. 3 one way, just brushing past the ear if you can. So thinking about just really opening shoulders and chest, and then the other way around. Should feel a little bit of a stretch here, obviously in the hip flexor, but also in that left hip. Try and think about pulling in TVA, pelvic floor with this one too. Last one, all the way round to 12 o'clock. Then step back to downward dog. One breath here in downward dog. See how you feel, if you feel any looser there in the hamstrings, hips, or backs of the shoulders. Then lower yourself down onto all fours. I'll just switch myself around so I've got the light shining on me. So we're going to go to our donkey kicks. So take your weights. And instead of going single leg, well, we are going to do single leg, but actually you can put both weights ready, and tuck them behind the calf muscle and the hamstring. And we're going to go to the right first. So right leg's a little bit of a squeeze, then lifting up hips still and lowering down. So do a couple on the right. Now if you can hold what you've got, you can go for a straight switch into the left, a couple on the left. And then switch. Just depends sometimes what your weight is, whether you can grip it in there. If you haven't got the weight, it doesn't matter, just alternate. And you're thinking here about the foot, the sole of the foot going up towards the ceiling, the hips being still. Focus on TVA, pelvic floor. And then we're doing these little pulses, 1, 2, but then once you've got that, maybe go for like a straight swap, so one leg and then the other leg. And see how that kind of sets with you, because it can be difficult doing the alternating, the switching over. Mastering that, you could add in the opposite arm, lift to the side. Which is quite tricky. I don't know how that went down. One side was okay, the other side very tricky. So all the time these hips are still, they're not tilting side to side. Arm up coming level with the shoulder. We're not arching in the lower back, pelvis is tucked under. Breathing out to lift, breathing in to lower. 3 more. Knees, feet staying hip width. Flexions there in the ankle, dorsiflexion there. Lowering it down then, and then if you've got the weights, bring them forward so they're under your hands. So now we're going into the extensions. So tuck your knees, your feet are hip width. So it's left leg extend, squeezing in the glute, right arm extend. Then lower it all down, switch sides. So right leg, left arm, bring it back down. So just as, because this is like a week 3 working kind of with the weights and with things like this, that's why I've pulled you straight into working with the alternating, just to see how we're progressing. And actually it's quite hard to lift the arm up level with the shoulder, you might be finding that. Try and think about the length in the spine, so the crown of the head stays in line with the spine, the lower back isn't arching. And then the challenge, if you take it, is to lift off the back foot, so it's a bit more with balance. You can almost imagine you're like a water skater on a pond here, skating. Like a floating kind of thing. Breathing out to lift, breathing in to lower. Keep the focus there on the TVA. Squeezing in the glute to lift. Hips are staying still. 3 more. Focus to the front of the mat. So we'll release with that one. We'll bring ourselves to a low lunge. Just step the left foot forwards. Nice hip flex stretch. Have a little sink down and then kind of send the thighs together, engage the core, so we're not super dropping down. Then we'll find eagle arms. So left elbow underneath right. If you can, palms of the hands together. or kind of near the backs of the hands together is the other option. And this is for shoulders, we're gonna take a circle, but think about the elbows circling. So not thinking about the shoulders circling, which I might have done with you before. Actually draw a circle here with the elbows. So not so much shoulders and the whole of the top of the body, the torso, just elbows. So there's a nice release here for the shoulders. 3 one way and then 3 the other. Just circling with elbows. Obviously there's a little tilting here in the shoulders, but the biggest circle is with the elbows. And then just pressing into the chest. So press the lowest elbow down into the chest and then lifting it up. And you can take the eye gaze up towards the fingers. And just doing this a couple of times, and you can bring the neck into here, so chin to chest. It's a release here for the neck, and then looking up. And just one more. Chin into chest, elbows towards the chest, and lifting up. Then releasing that back down, and we're going to switch legs. So bring the right leg forwards, preparing for a hip flexor stretch. Check you're on those railway tracks again. Hips slightly sink down, then send those thighs together, pull in the core muscles, and it's right elbow underneath left, eagle arms. And then, so if you can just take your circles with your elbows. And if you can, try and start the elbows kind of at chest level, so they're not too low. You're in a good upright position when you do your circles. It's a bit like rinsing out the shoulders for any tightness. So just circling 3 one way, then 3 the other. Try not to hold the breath, still engaging with the core. Try not to let the hips super sink down with the low lunge. And then elbows in towards chest, chin down into chest, and then eye gaze coming up, lifting the arms up towards the ceiling, and then 2 more. Chin into chest, elbows into chest, and then let's still engaging with the core, holding balance here in low lunge. Chin to chest, and last one, lift. So bring yourself all the way down onto your fronts, and we'll go for a swan dive. And it'd be nice to see how that feels after doing that work on the shoulders. Just put my mat that way so I haven't got too much space there. So just relax the lower body, forehead down onto the mat. It's breathing out, we've got cactus arms, breathing out, lift head and shoulders, breathing in lower. And breathing out left. Breathing in lower. Try and keep that forehead down towards the mat. So maybe that feels like, for me it feels a little bit easier today after doing some of the shoulder work. Adding in, if you want, lifting up to the cactus, lift the elbows up, the hands up and lower. Engage that pelvic floor, engage that TVA. Try and keep the feet down on the floor. Breathing out left, breathing in lower. Adding in, if you want, left, breathe in, then breathing out, extend, reach forwards. Come back to cactus and lower. 3 breaths in there, so really take your time thinking about the extension, thinking about that length in the spine. Try and keep that crown of the head shining forwards. Just 2 more. Breathing out in the full extension. So our release for the swan dive is our cat stretch. So up onto all fours, hands under shoulders, knees under hips, and just lifting the top of the back, chin into chest, space between the shoulder blades, and really send the breath here between the shoulder blades. So you can't really do yogic belly breath here. It's really high up in the chest to the top 2 corners of the torso. And just take 3 more deep breaths, full inhales. So come down, elbows underneath your shoulders, and just need a little bit of space because I've called this the front plank shuffle. So, and we're going to go from side to side on the mat, so that's why you need the space just a little bit to the sides. So elbows underneath your shoulders, pelvic floor in TVA, and lifting up the hips, so we're hovering. So we'll go for the first layer and then I'll build. So basically we're going to shuffle off so that one arm ends up off the mat and one knee off the mat. And then the knee and the elbow that's on the mat, you're going to turn it to the outside of the mat and take a big side star. So we did that one last week. So just open the chest, lift the top leg. So use the elbow that's on the mat. Then drop it back down, shuffle it back to the other side. So to the side, and then the same thing. Take yourself a big star, look to the side of the mat, the outside of the mat, then bring it down. Then shuffle it all the way across. Just small movements with the knees. Then a little bit of a spin and take your star. So I've called it the front plank shuffle. So that sounds fun. Notice as you're shuffling, shoulders down away from ears, you're not collapsing in the stomach as well. You're holding those core muscles in. The lower back isn't arching. Keep working with the shuffle. And then a little bit of a spin. And also notice if one side, and just, it's only a pause in the side plank. It's up to you how long you hold it. Notice if one side is a little bit trickier than the other side. Sometimes that can happen. So the progression is obviously to take it so that the legs are straight. So the shuffle becomes with straight legs, and then you're lifting in a bit more of a side plank star. Again, just notice if you're arching in lower back or lifting too high. And then if you feel like you've mastered that, you could take the full version, which would be a high plank, and then shuffling across to the side. And then obviously the side plank's a little bit harder because you're working a little bit more with balance. Coming down, shuffling across. Again, noticing that you're not arching the lower back. Noticing you're not holding your breath. Hopefully you're enjoying this. Maybe it's quite tricky. We're going to go for about 3 more. Kind of ties together a couple of moves we've been playing with, so kind of nice to put it all together. Last one. Shuffle and star. Then we'll release with a child's pose, so sit back to your heels. Press a little bit of a wiggle, hip side to side. And just join index finger thumbs, place a diamond down in front of you. Elbows, just allow them to drop to the sides of the mat, just to allow the shoulders to relax. Forehead down onto the mat. Or if sometimes the mat's too far, like a cushion, or even like a block or something, it's quite nice to rest your head on. And we're just going to take 5 deep breaths here. So really filling the belly with air. And then just send that breath right up the spine, right if you can towards the third eye. So last breath, and then coming from there, we're going to go onto our side. So pick a side. We're going to need the weights again, but just one weight. And we're going to go for a double leg lift, and you can place your weight just above the knee. Squeeze whatever you've got there between the thighs. Pelvic floor and TVA in. Just I'm resting my head here, it's a nice stretch for my neck. And then it's a double leg lift, so lifting both up, because you've got to squeeze whatever your weight you've put in there. Squeeze, a little bit of a lift and a lower. And obviously, depending on how heavy your weight is, lift is an inner thigh move and lower. You can either go hand on hip if you want to work a little bit more with balance, and lower. If you feel like you've mastered balance on this point, you could maybe lift the arm up and over for a little bit more of an extension, and lower. So it's not a high lift, but there's definitely engagement there. You'll feel it kind of around the hips, around the glutes, inner thigh, maybe a little bit of lower back. It's a little bit of a lift and extend. And if you want to bring in some of the stuff we normally do, so you can go rib cage, so it's lift, rib cage, so it's a little bit higher with the torso, the upper body, and then lower it all down. 3 more lift, rib cage, extend, and lower. Try not to look down at the feet. It's lift, rib cage, and extend. Keep thinking pelvic floor, TVA, and lift, and up and over. Last one, lift, rib cage, and over, and then release. And then this one we did last week is the clam. So bend the knees, heels in line with your hips, in line with shoulders. Lift your heels up level with your hips. Top knee lifts and lowers, and we can bring in that weight straight away, because I'm just seeing how we go with going straight in into that scapular set. Challenge is to just lift the elbow off the waist, so you have to control it. So obviously it's going to want to wobble everywhere. Shoulders down away from ears. And if you feel like you're arching too much in your lower back, you can bring yourself forward slightly. Pelvic floor TVA in. Kind of an interesting way to see where the shoulders are. 3 more. Breathing out left, breathing in lower. And last one. Oh, I find that one quite hard, that one. So the next one we're going to go side kick. So lift the top leg, put the weights down, flex the top foot, hamstring stretch, point the toe, bring it back. So this is more of a release move. These last two are kind of working with strength. Try and keep the leg up level with your hip. Really nice way, just lengthen out the hamstrings, get everything rinsed out. You can bring in the chest stretch, hands behind head, drop the elbow. That really nice spine twist, then drop the elbow forwards on the point. Just go slowly into the spine twist. Breathing out for your side kick. Breathing in as the elbow drops forwards. 2 more. I can see a foot just going in. I was like, "What's that?" And I thought it was a cat, but it was Chris's foot in his screen. Let's switch sides. We started with the double leg lift. So again, if you put the weight in on the last one, just above the knee, then align yourself up so you're pretty straight up until the shoulder where the elbow might stick out for balance. So then it's just the double leg lift, pelvic floor TVA, and just a very small lift. And you can bring the arm up and over, extension, and then lower everything down. Little bit of a lift. Check that you're engaging with the core with this. And extend, and release. Lift, and over, and release. Bringing in the rib cage as well. So work with the leg lift, rib cage, big concentration on the core for the balance, and release. 3 more lift, rib cage, and extend, and release. And lift, rib cage, and extend, and release. 2 more. Breathing out. Last one. Lift. Quite small movements really there with the legs, the rib cage, but quite effective. Then we go to the clam, so bend the knees. Feet in line with your hips, your shoulders. Lift your feet slightly so you're tilting yourself forwards there. Then top knee lift, scapular set. Oh, we did try last week we did lift and then lower scapular set. That was another one, wasn't it? However you prefer. I think I prefer lifting the scapula set whilst the knees down for me. Again, thinking about the elbow, so lifting the elbow if you want more of a challenge. Notice here, so pelvic floor TVA, particularly TVA, notice if you just lost that engagement there. It's a little bit of a pull in. Hopefully you're feeling the glute med engage. 3 more. Then release from there, side kick, so lengthen the leg away, flex the foot, kick it forwards, point the toe, bring it back. A couple of ones just to get the hamstring stretch to the right point that you want, working your flex and point. And then you can think about perhaps putting in the twist, the upper body, the spine twist, dropping the elbow forwards, keeping that engagement there with the pelvic floor, the TVA. As well, notice if the leg drops, so try not to let the foot drop below hip height. Try and keep to that same point of that hamstring stretch that you had on those first couple. Breathing out as you kick forwards, breathing in as the elbow comes forwards. 2 more. So from there we're going to go onto our back, so make your way onto your backs, find a neutral spine, just taking a check on the time. Perhaps a little pelvic tilt, relax your shoulders. Have the weights nearby because we're going to bring them in. Knees, feet hip width apart, bend the knees. So take the arms up to the ceiling, grab your weights if you're going to go with your weights as well. And then all you're going to do is just open like a big fly, what we call a chest fly, and then bring it back up to center. And you're thinking here about noticing what happens with the pelvis. So how's your lower back lifted as the arms come down? So see if you can imprint lower back down, pull in pelvic floor, pull in TVA. So the core, the pelvis stays nice and still as you do your chest work. And then if you feel like you've got that and everything's nice and still in the core, it's one arm lower, opposite knee lower. And then recenter. One arm lower to the side, opposite knee lower to the side, and recenter. Trying to keep everything nice and still in the middle. Been working on this now for a couple of weeks, so it kind of should feel like it comes a bit quicker now for you. Try not to let the hips open with this one, so it's a little bit more of an inner thigh stretch. Feet are relaxed. Try not to hold any tension here in the shoulders. Shoulders down, away from ears. As well, if you notice if your chin has started lifting up to the ceiling, just find some length in the back of the neck. Or even a cushion under the back of the neck will work for that. So bring the arms still and just straightening one leg, and we go for the one leg circle. So the same thing with the core being still, the pelvis being still, and working with your imprint on the lower back. Take small circles, the size of like a watermelon, something like that. But to be fair now, week 3 we can go a bit bigger if you want. So if you feel that you've got all that control, the things we've been working on every single week, maybe start doing a little bit bigger circles. Start exploring the space around the body if you can control the other knee, the other knee pointing up to the ceiling is nice and still. The core is super still and engaged, and the lower back is imprinting. Then just explore with the circles. Go for giant clocks. 3 one way, 3 the other. Notice as well if your arms are starting to go over the head with your weights. So if you can keep them kind of directly over the shoulders. And then we go to the other leg. So maybe start small. Start with the watermelons and then build to the clocks. Thinking as well, imprinting shoulder blades down. Thinking about the lower back imprinting, the core engaging. And you feel like you've got the other knee still, it's not spiraling with the leg that's circling. Start exploring these giant clocks. Notice as well if you're just holding the breath, so just try to go to a really nice, easy, steady breath. 1, 2, 3, 4 in, 1, 2, 3, 4 out. And circle the other way around. Maybe notice if this leg was a little bit more tricky than the other leg. Obviously you chose it second, might have been hiding. Still imprinting, still connecting with the core. Last one. So release the weights to your sides, and we'll just take a break from the weights, but do our 5 sets. So it's going to be 4 toe taps, an 8-second pulse, and then an 8-second hold. So knees, feet hip width apart, do the first set in beginners, but it's up to you if you want to go straight in. Right ankles behind the knees, imprinting, core engaged. 4 toe taps, 4, 3, hips still, they don't want to be tilting, 2, and 1, lift and pulse, arms up and down, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, slide hands towards knees, hold, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release, upper level if you choose, tabletops, 4 toe taps, 4, and 3, 2, and 1, we're still imprinting, pulse, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, straightening legs, reaching towards the knees, hold, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release, ready to go again, 4 toe taps, 4, 3, 2, 1, still imprinting, pulse, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and reach ribs to hips, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, release, 4 toe taps, 2 sets to go, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift and pulse, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, straighten legs and reach, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, release is the last set, palms up, shoulders relaxed, 4 toe taps, 4, 3, 2, and 1, still imprinting and pulse, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, straighten legs for reach, 8, 7, 6, 5, keep breathing, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and take a full body stretch for a release. So just scrunch at the first, point the toes, squeeze glutes, push the backs of the knees down into the mat, pull the tummies in, scrunch at the face, lift the shoulders up to the ears, take a really big squeeze on all the muscles, big deep breath in, and then just breathing out, just let everything go, cactus out the arms, turn the feet out to the sides, relax the hips, and just take a couple of resting breaths. So from here we're going to bend the knees, go to a heel slide, so slide one heel away, hands just there on hips, see if we can keep the hips still, they might want to tilt. Concentrate on the imprint here, so the lower back connection with the mat, and just see if you can keep it nice and kind of heavy, that imprint, so it's not tilting, it's not moving, shoulders are relaxed. If you've got that imprint and it's nice and still and you want to do a little bit more, and we can put in the weights to this one as well if you choose, or palms together and you can reach across towards the bent knee, recenter, reaching across, a bit like going around a semicircle here, or quarter of the clock round, recenter. And then obviously you can tabletop that, and then it's like your single leg stretch coming across, recentering. So to put the weights in, it's literally between the palms, and you might want to interlink the thumbs just so the weight doesn't drop. And obviously you can bring that across and round, but just be aware you're working with quite long levers with the weight at the end of the arm, so just take it steady. Keep working with imprint, keep pulling in the core, kind of don't extend too far into this. And you can tabletop that. Breathing out as you lift. Breathing into lower. 4 more, whichever version that you're working on, with or without weight. Try to keep the knees hip width. You might want to stray onto the midline with this one. So release, feet down, bend the knees, and bring your weights back in for a chest press. So arms up to the ceiling, bend in the elbows to almost like a cactus, and then lifting back up. So a really nice chest exercise. Imprint lower back down, and think about the shoulder blades as well, imprinting down towards the mat. Length at the back of the neck. So if the chin started to lift, just get the length there, back of the neck, chin towards chest, or head underneath cushion. So knees and feet are hip width. So we're going to do a little combo here. So it's going to be adding in, we're going to go for the double leg stretch. So tabletop, up with your arms, straighten legs. So everything straightens. Then bending in the arms, then slowly let the arms drop to a flat cactus. And then knees to the side, extend to the corners of the room. Bending in the middle. So we're putting in like your spine twist extension. And then lifting the arms up, just quite hard, and then chest press, double leg stretch, bring it down, slowly lower. I have to be really careful because I have a bit of a dodgy shoulder, so the lowering and the lifting for me on that one, I have to take it very slowly. And then lift, really think about the elbows planting down into the mat, and then lift. So if you want to add in double leg stretch pulse, maybe 8 pulses here, crisscross. And then you could come down, lower you down, cactus down, and then across. And the low cactus is pretty good because it really kind of cements elbows down and the chest down. So you get some kind of extra stretching kind of in there. And then crisscrossing. You can take that down towards the floor if you want to test yourself, test your core. Keep the focus there on the imprint on the lower back, and then bend, and then over, extend. Should get that juicy stretch for your hamstrings in there. Slowly lift, really nice way to tie in shoulders. Some little posture work as well for the chest. 2 more. However you've kind of put the sequence together. Lowering down. Drifting across. And notice if I do it, I always go to the same side first. So if we can switch it on the next one. Back, chest press, double leg stretch, crisscross. Notice if you're holding your breath anywhere with this. If you can, just think about breathing out. So the other side this time on the extensions. So then lifting up the weights, lift them up and then just lowering them all the way down just to reset ourselves. And just a little pelvic tilt here. So it's like a little bit of a release. Massage the lower back. Feel it kind of heavy down into the mat and then slowly lifting vertebrae by vertebrae. Keep the connection pelvic floor TVA. Shoulders super relaxed. So we're going to go into our shoulder bridge, and again you've got the option to put the weights in, a bit like we did this very similar last week. Knees, feet hip width apart, so if you can just touch your ankles. Pelvic tilt, lifting up the hips. You can bring your weights in here, arms up and over, be careful as you go over your head with the weights. Length there at the back of the neck, chin into chest. So progressing, if you choose, one leg lengthening away, squeeze the glutes, keep the hips lifted. Now instead of double arms, just bring one arm down. And then see if you can alternate arms, one arm. Obviously alternate. Instead of last week we did double arms. Now just see if you can do 4 alternates. Squeezing those glutes, keeping those hips lifted. And try not to wiggle too much in the shoulders. Keeping the length there at the back of the neck. Eye gaze to the ceiling. Then come to center, slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, lower yourself down for a reset. Then it's pelvic tilting, lifting up the hips, arms up and over, length at the back of the neck, straightening out the other leg, squeezing glutes, hips are nice and still. And again, just bring one arm down. Then work into your switch. Alternate the arms. Keep the control here because the shoulders want to wiggle, the hips want to drop, the glutes want to turn off. Still thinking about TBA. Try not to hold the breath. One more switch. Recenter the arms over the head. Place that foot down, vertebrae by vertebrae. Bring yourself down. Hug your knees into your chest. A little bit of a rock or a circle for a release. And then, if you can, just see if you can rock yourself up to a seated position. And we're going to do a few little rollbacks. So, have a space behind you on the mat. Come to the front of the mat. Have a one weight handy, because I'll show you how to bring it in if you want. So hug yourself up, curl and C-shape your lower back. Lift your feet up off the mat. Vertebrae, vertebrae, then we're going to rock back, C-shape, lower back, and then come back to your hover position, draw in the core. Just a couple of them. If you're not feeling comfortable on your row back, just C-shape and then lift to like a really nice upright position. Otherwise, keep working with your roll back. So an option for the weight to come in is you just holding the weight in your hands. So you're not really going to be holding onto your shins anymore, but you hold on to the weight and then you rock back and you can take it and open the legs for your hamstring stretch, and you can kind of take your arms up over your head with the weight, then rock it back, bring the weight with you. Now if you feel like playing with balance, you could take a teaser here with the weight kind of parallel, your arms parallel to your legs. So teaser's option, and actually you might find it easier with the weight in there. Then control, rock back, hamstring stretch, and then teasers. And kind of the weight will actually kind of help with balance on that. So it's kind of interesting. So it's a really nice opening for the hamstrings. Push away at the backs of the knees, C-shape, get a nice curve, and then lift if you can find your teasers. Again, just pushing at the backs of the knees. Two more. Opening. Curling like a ball. Opening at that top shape. Last one. And back. Curling like a ball. See if you can open. And release. It's interesting how, I don't know, I found the weight a little bit easier on my teaser. So, we'll just take a heart opening stretch. We're nearly a couple more moves and then I'm going to finish. So flex the feet, push the backs of the knees down into the mat, so engage the hamstrings. Hands down by your just behind your hips, and then lift up the chest, squeeze the shoulder blades together. Think about sending the heart up to the ceiling, but don't think about looking up. So think about the length of the back of the neck. And think about the crown of the head going up to the ceiling, but really working on lifting up the heart, the rib cage. It's just a really super nice stretch. Quite good for posture. 3 deep breaths here. And here you can use your yogic breath, so you can start in the tummy, send it up like we did in child's pose. So from there, bend the knees, and without weights, either cross the arms. With weight, just take your weight and place it on your chest. We're going to C-shape the lower back. We're going to just take ourselves into like a half roll down, and then bring ourselves back up. Now it is quite hard depending on what weight you've got. So just coming down into like a bubble bath halfway, and then coming back up. Notice what's happening with your knees. So if your knees are printing in, just try and keep your knees parallel on the railway tracks, because when the knees come in, the hip flexors are taking over. C-shape that lower back, halfway down. Draw yourself up almost to that heart stretch, so you're getting that upright position. Lifting up through the chest, shoulders back. Halfway down, lots of control. Breathing in left, breathing in lower. Doesn't necessarily have to be super low for this. 2 more. And last one. So leave the weights and we'll go for the full one. So flex the feet, reaching the arms up. See if you can get your arms up around your ears. So think about that heart stretch. So really think about lifting up the heart. Then reach forwards, hamstring stretch, so if you can just touch your toes. Then lift up right again. Then slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, lower yourself down. See how it feels after using the weight. Full body stretch and breathing out, coming all the way down around towards the knees of the hands. Lifting yourself up. So this is almost like a release. Like an extension and a release after kind of shortening everything, putting the weights in there. Extending. Breathing in to lift. Breathing out as you come forwards and you're stretching your hamstrings. Breathing out as you come all the way down. Last one. Drawing yourself up, flexing those feet for your hamstring stretch. See if you can get the arms up around the ears. Slowly coming down. Coming back up. Crossing the legs or grab a cushion, legs straight, whatever's comfortable. Facing this way. Get yourself nice and upright, so chest lifted, shoulders back, palms together. Breathing in, get nice and tall. Crown of the head going up to the ceiling. And then breathing out, take a nice slow spine twist. And if you really think of pushing the palms together, it really helps to stabilize the shoulders. Breathing in left. Breathing out for the twist. Doesn't have to be going all the way around. All the way around. Can anybody go all the way around? No. Breathing out, twist. That'd be something. And you can use your yoga breaths. Start in the tummy, send it up. 2 more. Last one. Coming back to center, palms together, namaste.